Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss the government's latest holes in their ongoing Brexit border planning. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, I mean, really an update, because you would think with Brexit proper coming in 6 months' time, in other words, the end of the transition period, therefore leaving the single market and the customs union, that, we should have everything set up now, should we not? Barring the odd little tweak, maybe, to what are going to be brand new systems, which are bound to have teething problems. But no, the Conservative government had 4 years of stating that they wanted to leave the single market and customs union, and yet didn't immediately begin to put in place the new border arrangements that they knew would be needed. Boris Johnson, their third leader in 5 years, himself has had a year. He was made Prime Minister a year ago. He could have begun this implementation that year ago, but didn't. He also told us he had an oven-ready Brexit deal last year. That seems to have disappeared. And a number of Brexit features can be hidden from the general public, because ultimately Brexit is purely political. It's not what's in the best interest of the country. It's not economically in our best interest. It's not socially in our best interest. It's just a political game. But trade is more difficult to hide, because that is going to be reported on. I mean, ultimately, the way the government hides something from the public is not actually by being sneaky, but by the media being complicit. And a lot of the media is right-wing in this country, and it will be complicit in hiding up an awful lot of the mess of Brexit, particularly the popular parts of the right-wing media. But trade, no, they'll all be reporting on that. All of them. Whether we share a customs arrangement or not with our neighbours, we do need a system for trading with them. We don't have one. And the government have just, apparently sent out an 89-page consultation document to the haulage industry. Now, the consultation document is essentially, here's what we're trying to achieve. How do you think we could do that? That's the consultation. And you wait for the responses, you collate them, kick them around in committees, and then you come up with some sort of plan that seems to have broad consensus. Now, what this report suggests to me is we're still at the consultation stage. Now, I know that there isn't a government plan for all this as yet because they haven't published it. But even I might have thought they'd have some idea of how they were going to solve the fairly complex problems. Because here's the thing. Let's say you are generous enough to suppose that the government do actually have plans for everything that they think will work. And this, we'll do this, this will absolutely work. But the consultation is just to let industry put their thoughts, for fine tuning in. You would be being generous. Because according to a report in Bloomberg, who've seen this consultation document, there is no mention of lorries. Lorries? That's nothing. No. How they're going to cope with the new customs arrangements? Nothing at all in this 89 pages. Now, bearing in mind that our main port to Europe, Dover, gets a peak of 10,000 lorries a day passing through. And in a typical year, it's about 1.5 million, so I gather. That's a lot of freight to have no idea how it's going to do its jobs in 6 months' time. And that's just at Dover. It's only one of our ports, albeit the single largest. Millions of lorries throughout the UK passing between the UK and our European neighbours each year. We don't have the facility to do the extra checks required. We don't know what form those extra checks will take, and we haven't expanded our port facilities where they're needed. The government has indicated recently, talked about this, that the plan is essentially, the government have now accepted that they cannot carry out inbound checks. So their plan is effectively just to wave things through. But it's not as simple as just saying, oh, we're going to let anything through. And it's not even just an issue about pointing out the fact, okay, this is going to be an open route for smuggling. How is this taking control by opening our borders up completely? Because that's the plan. But it can't actually be the plan. That's just Michael Gove saying it for public consumption. It can't actually work like that. Because if you just wave EU goods through, the US and China are going to be extremely unhappy because there's checks on their goods, and to put checks on goods from some countries and not others, where you have no agreement, oh, that's dead against WTO rules. And this is a complex, genuine problem, because as things seem to stand, the government don't even have an idea about how it may be solved. Otherwise, why wouldn't that be in this consultation document? Let alone having decided the method to actually solve it. Because I wouldn't even be, even if the government actually had plans and they were still sending this consultation out for last minute tuning. Last minute was surely a year ago. We can't call this, we haven't got time. You know, they should have by now decided on the method and be disseminating that to the businesses who need to know. And the government keep banging on about certainty, how important certainty is for businesses, which of course it is, and how not extending the transition period provided that certainty. But of course it didn't. If we did extend the transition period, that would be certainty, because every single business would then be certain of what it needs to do. The same as it's doing right now and has done for many years. Because let's say after the transition period you want to export your goods to the EU. What do you need to do? Don't know. How's that certainty? Or if you want to export your goods to a non-EU country for which we are about to lose our EU negotiated trade agreements, what then? How do you do that? Not sure. How's that for certainty? If you want to import goods from the EU, what do you need to do? No idea at all there. No idea. At least for exporting, the EU are involved and we'll just have to use their systems. The government are not really providing much guidance on that, but the systems sort of exist. Importing, the systems don't exist. There's nothing. How's that certainty? Then there are other difficulties. So, as an example, what if you want to transport some goods to the EU temporarily? So, you want to go to a trade show in France or Belgium or Germany to get more customers. So you want to take some of your products with you to demonstrate. They're not actually being exported from the UK because they're going to come back. And I mention this one because it is actually mentioned on the government website as a thing. But then what you do is you look at it and you think, oh, there's a system there. But actually when you follow it through, and you start to imagine yourself in this position, you think there isn't actually a definitive process at all in some cases. Because it talks about the outward processing relief, which you might think, oh, there's a system. Because what it is, it's if you're going to take your goods from the UK to the EU, you're going to have to pay tariffs. You're going to have to pay duty on it, customs duty. But if you're going to bring it back, it hasn't actually been exported in terms of the net effect. So you may be able to claim it back. But you've still got to do that. So you've still got to pay those duties to take it to that trade show. And then filling a load of paperwork later on to try and claim it back. And then you follow it through, imagining that it would apply to you. And first of all, it doesn't apply to all goods for a start. So you may just have to pay export duties to move some of your goods to that trade show, bring them back. You don't get your money back. And the process it's just doesn't cover everything. And when it does cover it, it's basically saying to you, you may end up with no net cost other than the cost of paying staff to deal with all the paperwork you need, the outgoing paperwork and then the inbound paperwork to get your money back. And it perfectly demonstrates for me the complete lack of certainty. Not only will businesses have to pay duties and fill in paperwork to do what they currently do without a lot of hassle, but there's even more paperwork required to do something that would be a temporary export. And what if this makes it too difficult or costly to attend trade shows? It's not worth the hassle. Well, what's that going to do for British businesses trying to sell their wares abroad? So then you're going to see more of a decline there. At the very least, what you see is greater costs for our businesses, which makes them much less competitive. And if you think about it, also much less profitable. Now, with smaller profit margins, so let's say you can absorb the costs of all this extra admin. Smaller profit margins, what does that mean? That means when your business hits a little rocky patch, so something causes a maybe even short-term decline in demand for your products, like for example a global pandemic, it makes it much more likely you won't be able to recover. Because if your profit margins are much greater, you can take more of a hit in business before it really hurts you than if those profit margins are really small. Because then any little bump in the road can send you, to the poorhouse. But back to the lorries, because it is baffling for me. I almost wonder. So then you think to yourself, so why do the government not have a proposal for lorries? Is it like a Dominic Raab situation? If you remember Dominic Raab, he was the guy who had to admit that he didn't understand the importance of Dover to our trade. He didn't understand it as a trade route. And you just think to yourself, is it that level of thinking? Are they not aware of just how important lorry freight is? Or, and this is actually ironically more worrying for me, is it just that they haven't got a clue? They genuinely have no idea. Because if you had an idea, even if it's not a brilliant one, you would put it in there for consultation. People would kick it around and they'd say what's good about it, what's fine, we can keep that, and then what's bad about it, right, we need to address that. Nothing at all does that suggest they have no idea. And, what would ideally happen, of course, is the government, and the government certainly want this to happen, they're talking about this, is what they want is for lorry drivers, or their companies, their logistics companies, to fill out the customs paperwork electronically in advance. So it's all filled in when they get to Dover, from whichever direction. So the lorries can pass through in a reasonable amount of time. Now that makes sense. I'm sure everyone can agree that would make sense. The problem is that the system doesn't exist. It's being developed. I talked a few weeks ago about how industry experts have said that there is no way. Well, first of all, the system that the government wants to use is not even in its prototype stage. It's not actually workable. They're talking about wanting companies to log on to it by September, but it don't work. So they can't actually use it. And the idea of having a phased transition, of course, anyone who's set up IT systems would know that this is a good thing. You have your working system and your new system in parallel. So if the new system has some problems, well, you've got the old system as well. The new system isn't working. Can't actually implement it. Industry experts have also said that it's not feasible to have a system working by the end of this year. Michael Gove himself said they didn't expect the full system to come online until 2024. So if the system doesn't actually exist, what then? There isn't room to just hold lorries, in queues at Dover. This is what we're getting. I'm not an expert on Dover, but from people who work there just isn't room. The geography doesn't allow it. You've got a load of rocks in the way. So if the system doesn't exist, what then? What then? That's the issue that we've got right now. And as I say, the fact that the government haven't put anything in a consultation document, according to the report, says to me they don't know. And it's almost like they're passing the buck and asking the industry, what should we do about it? Well, I can tell them what the industry will say back. What can we do about this? Extend the transition period until you have thought of a way of dealing with this. But there it is. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.